particular books that have been helpful for me to navigate the teenage years. The first one is called How to Hug a Porcupine, Negotiating the Prickly Points of the Tween Years.
Oh, that's cute. How to hug a porcupine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because those middle schoolers are kind of porcupiney. You know, they want your love, but they're also prickly, you know, when you try to hug them. Sometimes they don't want that. Mm-hmm. And so you really, this book is really kind of cute and helpful. A lot of good tips in here. When the kids are in tween years, and that's when a lot of the stuff kind of starts to rear its ugly head. So if you can start at that age level being aware of what's possibly going on with your teenagers to be, then you'll be one step ahead of the game. The second book is called Yes, Your Teen is Crazy, Loving Your Kid Without Losing Your Mind by Michael Bradley. And I like that book. There's a lot of great tips in there explaining what's kind of going on in your teenager's head. It seems odd to you, but makes total sense to them. The third book is, there's one book for girls and one book for boys. A lot of you know the title Queen Bees and Wannabes by Rosalind Wiseman.
Oh, these are great books. I'm not familiar with that one.
Queen Bees and Wannabes, that's the socialization of girls. The second author I like, her name is Rosalind Wiseman.
Got it.
And she wrote the book called Queen Bees and Wannabes, the socialization of girls. And that's how they are. There's the queen bee and then the wannabes. And that book is where the movie Mean Girls came from with Tina Fey.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the movie? And anyway, she had so much success with that movie Rosalind Wiseman did that she decided to pull the audience in the world of boys. And she came up with a book, I think just last year, called Masterminds and Wingmen. And it's helping the boys cope with the rules of boy world and helping them as we overcome their difficult challenges of being a boy. I mean, the Queen Bees and Wannabes book really changed our perception of adolescent girls. And this book now follows for boys, and it's very good. It talks about how the mastermind is just like the queen bee, and he has his wingmen, and they all have different roles. And I read this book in detail with my son, and he's like, yep, that's how it is. Yep, that's how it is.
Wow.
It's really interesting to me. There's the fly, the champion, the punching bag, the entertainer, the bouncer, the conscience, all these type of boys that are in their social circle, and there's the mastermind, and there's other people are all of his wingmen. And it's really interesting. It's a great book, Masterminds and Wingmen. Great book. That really helped me with boys. And then probably my favorite really fell into my lap when I was really in the throes of issues with my teenage girls, and it's called The Price of Privilege. It's a New York Times bestseller by Madeline Levine. And it says how parental pressure and material advantage are creating a generation of disconnected and unhappy kids. Parental pressure and material advantage. And it really talks about the price of privilege. And the picture on the cover of the print that I have, the printing that I have, is 4 teenagers all looking down at their cell phones. And that's just the picture of teenagers. And it's the price of privilege. And not only the cost of material cost of raising a teenager and being privileged, but the price of being privileged, be it the mental cost, the cost of hospitalizations, the emotional cost. It's traumatizing to have mental health issues with teenagers in your house. So this book, The Price of Privilege, really reaches right to the core of this issue, and I really, really recommend this book.
Did you say the author? And if you did,
Madeline, yes, Madeline Levine, Levine. It's available on Amazon. It's where I shop for all my books, and you can get it right there. It's awesome. Talks about all the issues, self-injury, drug use, inappropriate behavior in responses to every issue that comes their way, and how the world is trying to understand. Those are a handful off my bookshelf that I really grab when I'm troubled with something that comes my way that I have no idea what to do with it. So,
well, I think it's wonderful when you share all that with one another because, you know, as you'll be hearing about tonight, the audience will be hearing about tonight, is that this is a much more common problem than probably any of us really realized.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that wasn't around even very much 10 or 15 years ago. And when my kids that are 11 to 19, when I was having them as babies and I was having 5 kids in 8 years, I had this vision of all this greatness and love and family and always smiling and healthy, bouncy, happy. There were no cell phones. There was no internet. There was no, wow, this generation of kids just got inundated with technology, and we parents were left with no tools in our toolbox.
Great points. Yes, that's true.
And it was like, wow, and I don't say it out of lack of love for my children, certainly, but I was like, wow, had I known it was going to be so challenging all the time, I don't know if I would have had 5 kids. I mean, I love them all. I would have
Sure.
But it's just a lot more than I ever bargained for. I don't know.
Well, I think we have other issues. Yeah, I think we have other issues at play also. I agree, I have a 12-year-old, and really we just like to ban social media. I'm like, we homeschooled to prevent this, but we have other issues too, which we're going to talk about tonight. There's a lot of health issues that didn't exist when we were children, and a lot of things going on with our kids' bodies and the breakdowns in the food and such that are really affecting a lot too. So there's a lot at play here.
There really is. And then the schools are adding a tremendous amount of stress today, I think, more than ever before.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the schools are starting to be a little bit more accommodating in creating alternate ways for people to get through school because they have to. They just, public schools, I'm saying, they're responsible to provide a place for an education, whatever. And accommodations and stuff are becoming more prevalent today. But the diet, the food, all that stuff, I mean, it's real tricky.
Yeah, that's true. But, teenage behavior is one thing that we can't expect the schools to control, and we're not going to be able to control it. So it's really teaching kids how to be able to cope with those stresses brought on by their peers.
Right. And there's also good things we can do. We got to think about supporting them emotionally and nutritionally, certainly.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of things we can do to intervene and help them, minimize some of the impact that this stuff has on them.
Absolutely right, yeah.
Becky, if we could just take a couple of minutes before we start, if you would just share your story a little bit about how you came to become a naturopath, because you just completed your schooling around that. Before we get started, could you do that?
Sure. Well, basically, I grew up in a home. My dad worked for the Food and Drug Administration. He still does quality assurance for FDA standards of testing, Kraft macaroni and cheese, Chef Boyardee, Papa Flintstone vitamin once a week. We were taught that it was just candy. Anyway, I mean, not eat it at leisure, but basically a once a week kind of thing. And so I really knew nothing about the world of natural health. I got really sick in college, and I would say that kind of began my journey, but my journey really began when my first child was born. I have 6 children, and my oldest is 15. So it was really when she was born, I started really just diving in and wanted information on, well, how much protein should she have, and how many servings of vegetables, and that information was not available.
Not available.
Not for toddler. I mean, not for kids that young and such, but I really wanted to know all of that information. So I guess that yearning for that knowledge was always inside of me. And as I started having children, each one kind of got sicker than the last one. And my third child lost all of her skills. She had neurological damage, lost her ability to walk and talk, had severe digestive problems. And that's when somebody recommended that I talk to a La Leche League leader who actually happened to be a Shackley distributor, but I didn't know what that meant. So my journey, just kind of went from there. And that third child ended up being diagnosed on the autism spectrum. And later the oldest 3 were diagnosed. And really it came through my complete desire and need to help my children and not accept the limiting factors that were diagnostically put on them. And as I continued to do this and realized that I was repairing their bodies, not even knowing what was going on with them, and that there was this whole big process called biomedical approaches. And just people started asking me for more information, and I was asked to write a book, which I thought people were crazy, and I finally did it. And decided I needed to get some letters behind my name and some credentials, because there are certain things when you're dealing with things like autism spectrum disorders, and really when you're dealing with diagnoses, which Barb and I talk a lot about, you really, there is a limit to how much you can help people until you actually go to that level. I don't recommend that everybody goes to that level, but for me, because of where God was calling me, that's why I decided to get my degree as a naturopathic doctor. That way I didn't have to get a degree in anything like nursing. God bless all the nurses out there. I didn't want to have to go into the hospitals and do hospital rounds. And I knew too much at that point to want to go that direction. Plus at that point, you know, I had 5 kids and now I have 6 kids and I couldn't do the rounds. And so I don't want to say this was the easier route, but it was the route that enabled me to be able to do what God wanted me to do, find the answers I need to for my children, and help other people. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Very good. Well, we're glad to have you. We're glad to have you for sure. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Joe, do you want to kind of get us started?
Sure.
I didn't tell you I was going to ask you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Monday Night Wellness webinar, Creating Better Health for People. And our topic tonight is protecting the mental health of our kids. Boy, what a great topic. And we have Barb Lagoni, Becky Cash, Pam Carey, Crystal Johnson, and Hannah Sherapan to share some extremely valuable and worthwhile material with us.
Very good. So let's get started, and we're at the top of the hour, I think, right?
We are.
Good. There we are. Excellent. Well, we're going to tell you a little bit about what we wanted to share with you tonight. First of all, we want all of us to get a grasp about how vast the issue of mental illness is. Mental illness, anxiety, depression, mood swings. It affects a lot of kids. And if you have family members, if you have children that are struggling, we just want you to know you're not alone, and there are a lot of resources available. Secondly, we want to understand what some of the factors are that are contributing to this surge in teen depression and mental health issues, and understand some of the things that are under our control that maybe we can help alleviate. And then our expertise, of course, is much more in the natural line. It's about changing lifestyles, understanding some things that we can do to support healthy brains, to support healthy nervous systems. So that's the plan for this evening. And so, Hannah, let's talk a little bit about the incidence of depression and mental challenges for the teenagers.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's something that has climbed tremendously over the years. In fact, in 2000, it was only estimated to be 5 to 8% of adolescents, which was still bad enough. But now, when I was doing the research, it came out to the least I heard was 1 out of every 5, and some reports are even saying 1 out of every 3.
Wow.
I mean, that's really incredible to think a third of the nation could be in that situation, or even if it is just the 20%, that's still way too much. So, there are answers. We're going to talk again, like Barb said tonight, about the issues, but then we are going to be able to give you some real encouraging stories around that and some natural solutions to consider. And I think that it's a real valuable session we have for you tonight.
Yes, thank you. So one of our moms who's joining us tonight is Pam Carey, and she came across a really interesting top 10 list. Pam, tell us what you found.
Okay, I found the top 10 stressors for teens from the Palo Alto Medical Foundation this past July, so pretty current. Number 10 is criticism from parents. That can be grades and behavior at home, any kind of work ethic, really anything critical from the parents to the children. Number 9, cyberbullying. We all know what that is. Number 8 is dating, lots of pressures there. 7 is just changes, moving, schools, divorce, parents losing jobs, lots of changes in the teenage years. Number 6 is siblings. Teenagers are always competing for your love and attention, and oftentimes in homes where there are 2 parents working, there's a lot of pressure for teenagers to care for younger siblings, and it causes a lot of extra stress for the teenagers. Number 5 is popularity. Friends are so important to them, and their social status as well. Number 4 is finances. They have very little money, and everybody needs everything, and it all costs money, and there's lots of pressure for them to work, get a job, because they're 16, and that's hard in itself. Number 3, body image, prevalent in both boys and girls. Lots of pressure to look a certain way, acne and weight issues, lots of stuff there. Number 2 is family issues, anything from illnesses to poor communication and everything in between. And then number 1 on the list is school and grades, lots of pressure, competing with lots of activities in their lives and still got to get those straight A's and get into college that their parents want them to go to.
Excellent. So a lot of stuff there, right. So, Becky, share with us what the effect is of that stress on the body.
Oh, my gosh, there's so much effect. So, obviously, there's an effect on the body itself. You know, they can, things like headaches and such. I mean, we talked about migraines last week, but specifically headaches related to stress. You know, they can get sick, just muscle twitches, really tired. So just what I would say about the body is if you start to notice things about your kids that you didn't notice before, don't just blow it off and assume it's the teen years. We are really good at blowing it off as, oh, they're just teens. So there could be something going on there that we need to look at. The mind, they worry so much. And that list of what Pam went over, we actually had a speaker at one of our kids' schools this year because there were 3 suicides to start the school year off in our community. Not in our school, praise God, but I mean, and it was actually a religious, you know, a different religious school, so it wasn't even, you know, we assume all the public schools, but it wasn't even just there. So it was right on, but, you know, the mind just worrying about grades, worrying about what their parents think, and, you know, impaired judgment that they wouldn't necessarily be making those decisions maybe because of peer pressure, dating, grades again, behavior, you know, lashing out. Pam talked about some of these things too. You know, they might start drinking or have pressure to drink, loss of sex drive. Well, I don't know. I don't really want to focus on my teenagers' sex drives, but they may be more accident prone, or they might, you know, kind of start wondering, gosh, they're having a lot of accidents. Maybe they're not accidents. So, and then their emotions, just loss of confidence, more fussy, irritable, things that, again, especially in girls, they blow off as hormones. Maybe not.
And so there you see the depression in there as one of the side effects of stress. Pam, let's talk about the signs of depression.
Okay. As a parent who had issues with a couple of my girls, I can say it's really important to observe and really understand the signs of depression. They creep up, they come around, and when you see these things, it's really time to pay attention. We got to keep lines of communication open and be aware that these things could be happening underneath your roof. First one exhibit guilt, loss of pleasure, or internal low self-esteem, and can have loss of appetite. They withdraw from friends, a loss of interest in activities previously enjoyed. A lot of times they just become reclusive and they go to their room, take their phone, they take the computer, if they have a TV in the room, which my kids don't, but if you have a computer, you might as well have a TV, right? But they pull back and they isolate. They just go by themselves, listen to music, put the headphones on, just shut out the outside world and try to really figure out what's going on. There can be significant weight loss or gain. There can be binge eating, all kinds of crazy things that can go on with food and the association there. Poor performance in school or job. I've had phases where my kids just flat out do not do homework, zero. No homework. They just don't do it. Frequent complaints of illness, lots of headaches, stomach cramps from the girls, can't get out of bed, can't go to school, don't feel good, got a headache. Prolonged sadness, anxiety, feelings of hopelessness, truly hopelessness. belief that life is meaningless, complete confusion about what is going on in their heads. My girls have talked about seeing and feeling demons and just can't sort it out. Nobody knows how I feel. Nobody understands me. Mood swings, and lots of thoughts and writing about or thinking about death. They become preoccupied with death because they feel trapped in a box. Sometimes they feel like they can't get out, and it's a very scary situation. A lot of times, people want to turn the other cheek and deny that these things are happening to their kids, and that's exactly the wrong thing to do. So you have to reach out and try to somehow communicate the best you can to kind of help your child, and you need to make a plan. I mean, if they're hurting badly, who loves them more than their mom? And it's very upsetting to a parent because we have high standards for our children. We want the best for them. We believe they need to put on their best face and get out there and fight the good fight in the world today and do their best and be their best and try their best all the time. And sometimes they just flat out can't. And we have to love them where they're at, and that's a big thing that I learned. And who loves them more than their mom? And if the mom or the dad sells out on their kid, it's no wonder that some of the things happen the way they do, because we have to remember that nobody loves the kids more than we do. So we have to be there for them.
Very good.
I think one thing that we want to make sure that we also say that every child is going to probably have one or more of those at different times. It's the amount of them they have and how long it is the duration of it, because sometimes it's a very short phase and doesn't mean they necessarily have real depression. Wouldn't you agree?
Right. We don't want to run to the therapist's office right away and call the doctor and sound the alarms, but we want to kind of watch. If they're journaling, sneak a peek in their journal. Sometimes my kids will journal and they'll put it right on their nightstand with the page open. I mean, come on. Are they just waiting for me to come and read it? They can't get the words out to me, but, got to have your finger on the pulse with those guys. Check it out. Don't ignore what's in their backpack and who they're hanging out with, and read their text. My gosh, you pay for their cell phone. Read their text. You have the right to read that information. You can find out a lot about what's going on.
So let's look then at what are some of the factors that can be damaging to the brain. Becky, would you walk us through that?
Absolutely, because when we were even going through some of the things on the previous slide, in my head I'm thinking, oh gosh, let's deal with the cramps, let's deal with these feelings and such. Right. So there are so many factors that come into play as our kids reach that preteen, tween, teen, and young adult ages. And I know that we have a great mom on later who's going to talk about the college stages, but that's another big change time. So lack of sleep. This is a big deal, especially for our kids who are type A personalities, high performers, who really are running for the grades, that they will push themselves or they'll be on the phone all night with their friends and we don't even know it. So exposure to toxins, we talk about this from pregnancy, babies, our toddlers, or this and that. But, our older kids too. So cleaning products, pesticides. Let's look at the foods they're eating again. There's a lot of, Barb and I were talking earlier. I mean, I'm going to be real honest. I do this for a living, and I have a 12-year-old who would live on ramen noodles. And I had to break down, let her have it occasionally, but let me tell you, she never gets to open that little seasoning packet inside. Never. Flavorings, preservatives. The ramen noodle packet moms, get rid of them. So
MSG.
MSG. Oh, it's the worst. It's probably among the worst, right up there with Twinkies. So sugar, refined carbs, soda pop again. I don't know. As I was studying for my degree as a naturopath, I'm going, this is horrible. I'm craving chocolate and salt while I'm studying. It's a natural, I don't know. Our brains want those things when we're studying. So stress, lack of essential nutrients for the brain, which goes along with these other foods that they're grabbing and wanting to eat as they get a little more freedom. And medications, we talk about this quite a bit. So medication can definitely, I always have to look at that if my kids are even taking a Tylenol or an ibuprofen or, if we have to go for an antibiotic, they all have effects.
And here are some of them right here.
Absolutely. So, and I want to kind of give a disclaimer here. It was really important to me to do this. We are not in any way, shape, or form telling you if your child is on a medication, if you're on a medication, throw that medication out,
Right.
change your cleaning products. So this is something that I would tell you, you need to talk with your doctor about. But be aware of the fact that medications do have side effects. And just a slight tangent, I have a 14-year-old who got a concussion 2 years ago. I told Barb that I wanted to bring up the issue of sports-related concussions that could happen in a gym, even if you're told it's a minor concussion. There is no such thing as a minor concussion. We were told no activity for 2 weeks after his last symptom. There are tons of people on this call right now going, yes, yes, yes. 18 months is what I learned from other mothers, other parents, is the actual recovery time. He ended up being put on medications because of his level of stress, and he went toxic from the medications. So we had to look at other options. But the most common drugs are called SSRIs. These are for antidepressants, but the doctors are trying to use other classes of medications too. They really are trying to do what's safest for us and our kids, whatever safest is. So, but SSRI, they're serotonin uptake inhibitors. They affect chemicals in the brain that nerves use to send messages to each other. The chemicals are called neurotransmitters. You've probably heard of these. They can cause dizziness, headaches, nausea, impotence, diarrhea, upset stomach, and can even develop addictions to a drug themselves. So, and these are just, I'm not going to read these because I can't pronounce half of them. Some of the most common ones are under these names. So some change the actual brain levels of serotonin and norepinephrine. That's what they're for. They're there to turn on the serotonin or affect the norepinephrine in the brain. Most of them actually take 4 to 6 weeks to kick in, and anyone on this call who's been on one or is on one may remember being told, okay, we're going to put you or your child on this, but you're really not going to know for 2 to 4 weeks if it's doing anything. So some of the natural things that we're going to talk about in a little while, you can even notice in a day or two a difference. Right. So it's just really, they're quick things to go to that, and hey, I always think if I can go to something natural and if it does work rather quickly, maybe we won't have to stay on these other things long term. So unfortunately, they all have side effects. There's a quote by Eli Lilly. Lilly Corporation is a pharmaceutical company, and Eli Lilly said that any medication that does not have a side effect is not a medication at all. So so anyway, they're there, and we just have to really be careful when we're weighing the pros and cons. So
very good. So parents have some choices to make, and we're so grateful that a couple of parents are joining us tonight. Pam Carey, to share just sort of what she has learned from her journey raising teenagers that she can share with us, and what her recommendations are. Go ahead, Pam.
Okay. These are my 2 oldest children. Ben, who's 19 now, he's a freshman at Miami of Ohio, and Miranda on his left is my oldest daughter. She's now 17 and a senior in high school. Historically, Ben had a real healthy diet, lots of exercise, very active in sports, chose to take vitamins, kind of did whatever I said, was very compliant. I think he really understood. He never told me so, well, a couple times, but I think he really understood the relationship when he took the nutritional supplements, the various vitamins that I gave him, and he connected that with how he felt. He's not a good vegetable eater, let's be honest. Corn and potatoes are not vegetables, I don't think. But that's in his mind what they were, and he got away with that. If he ate a cucumber, it had peanut butter slathered all over it, and that's the only way it would work. Ew. Anyway,
that's okay.
He got him in. So he had his issues with bullying and some issues in school and stuff. Despite his size, he's 6'2", like 200 pounds. Graduated from high school. People bullied him. It's kind of ridiculous. But then Miranda had a different story, and she was ill as a baby a lot, and she was born in 1997. Back then, antibiotics were as common as milk and bread, and I thought my pediatrician was going to hold my hand and help me raise my daughter, and I was giving her, cow's milk and all kinds of things, and she had some food allergies and problems. She had a lot of antibiotics, a lot of ear infections. She was on antibiotics at age 2.5. I clearly remember taking her to the doctor in October for yet another ear infection. And I went back to preschool to pick up Ben, and I was in tears. And I told the teacher, I don't know what to do. My doctor just told me to put my daughter on antibiotics again. This is the 8th time this calendar year. It's October.
Mm-hmm.
She was antibiotics 8 times in 1 year. No probiotics, no supports for that. And I didn't know. I just didn't know. And, you know, we only know what we know. So I respect everybody who's been there because I've been there, and I thought I was doing my best. And that led to candida, yeast overgrowth in her gut, digestive issues. She was 9 pounds, 11 ounces, and I was taking her in at a year old for weight checks. She was having absorption issues with her food, lots of stuff. So anyways, this led to a diet high in sugar because she's craving sugar to feed the yeast that's running rampant in her body. And she ate a lot of refined carbs, a lot of chocolate. Ice cream's her favorite thing. Ever have a bad day, you've got to have ice cream. Led to acne, a lot of hormonal issues, heavy periods, things like that, mood swings, crazy depression, school avoidance, school refusal, couldn't get out of bed, deep depression disorder, rebellion, self-destruction, self-injury, cutting, burning, her skin, horrible, traumatizing, tear-jerking behaviors. You see that on the internet. You can Google self-mutilation if you want to look at it. I caution you. But that's one thing to see it on your computer screen. You see it on your child, the whole animal, buying, you know, helping her, letting her, listening to the therapist tell her that it's okay to do this for a while. It might take 4 to 6 months. Really? I'm gonna watch her carry razor blades around for 4 to 6 months. Really hard. A lot of medications. They lose her desire to live. She journaled a lot. She drew a lot. She was lost. It was sad. It was very sad. It was very hard to talk to for a long time. That was 2 years ago. And, you know, then came the medication. 4 to 6 weeks until we know that doesn't work. Try another one. Antidepressants, mood stabilizers, antipsychotic meds, trazodone, sleeping pills. Got to sleep. Got to get up. Got to take these in the morning, take these at night, take these with food, weight gain, mood swings, more depression, 40 pounds, 40 pounds. 40 pounds, a teenager, you know, she wants to sit on 40 pounds, and then she doesn't want to go anywhere. And so you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and spend 2 hours getting ready to go to middle school or getting high school to cover her acne. She couldn't go anywhere without full-blown makeup on. Horrible, just afraid, no self-esteem, nothing. And that went on for 2 years. She had attempted suicide. She was in the pediatric ICU for 5 days. They couldn't get her heart rate and her blood pressure up. She had taken 30 sleeping pills after cutting her arm and needing 17 stitches. And I really thought we were going to lose her. And she went on medication, heavy, and she ate a lot of ice cream. She stayed in bed. She didn't go to school. She missed her whole second semester of sophomore year. I think she got credit for gym because I talked to a gym teacher and I walked her outside in the trails by her home because I spent time with her. And I told her that I loved her, and you must be really sad, Miranda, that if you think this is a good idea and this is where you get your relief. I'm here for you. How can I help you? And I just was a puddle on the floor. I mean, I could care less about school. I really could care less about school. She would graduate from high school someday, but not now. Didn't care. And the rest of the family, 4 other kids put on hold. It's just the way it was. And then one day, April 30th, May 30th of this year, she's 17 in April, and it was May 30th, and she was done. She wanted to get off the meds. She had enough. She went to see the psychiatrist. These kids want to be heard. She said, I want to know what it's like to be off meds. I've been on meds since I was 15 years old. I'm tired of it. I still don't feel good. I still have mood swings. I'm still crabby. I'm still weird depression. I still don't sleep. My sleep cycle's messed up. I want to get off meds. And the psychiatrist said, I'm sorry, but I really think we need to increase your medication. And I'm sitting there saying, no. And so Miranda asked if she was frustrated. She said, no one is listening to me, and these kids want to be heard. How do you know how somebody feels inside their head? How can you sit there? I mean, we need doctors. I love and respect doctors. I'm not saying that. But she just wanted a chance. And it was the end of the school year, and she was like, I don't care if I lose my whole summer. I want to try to go off these meds, and I want to do it now. And so the doctor wrote us an order to go into the hospital for medication stabilization. We went in. They took her off cold turkey. It was horrible withdrawal. Horrible. She was off those 3 meds, and she was in the hospital for about a week. And she came home, and little by little, she started to get better. And I started to look at her, and I could see her instead of see through her. You'd look at her before, and she was glassy-eyed and just not there. And anyway, now it's been almost 6 months. She's losing weight, just naturally. She's cleaning up her diet. She has opened her mind to supplements and vitamins and listening and wanting. And she thanks me often for sticking by her side. And she says she wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me loving her through a tough time. And it's very emotional. And these kids are so cool and so fun to have when they're at the top of their game. And when they're not, it's really scary. So we, as the parents, have to take that responsibility to help them. And, you know, I took 2 paths, and I would really recommend the natural one. Even for her, and my subsequent children are, you know, treated a little bit differently. And I'm a little bit more persistent because I don't want to go back there. And they know. And it's a respect we have for each other, and we're grateful to have each other. But there are options that we have. So we want to talk about that tonight. I don't want to dwell on my situation anymore. But we know what they need physically and naturally and nutritionally, and maybe we can help them in this way. So,
thank you for that, Pam. It's a hard story to tell, but there's some lessons that you've learned, and I thank you for sharing them. Becky, then let's talk about factors that take us where Pam was talking about, that support healthy brain.
Right.
Becky.
So,
you scared me there.
New slide. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes. No, I can hear you.
Yes.
Go.
Okay, sorry. So we talked earlier about sleep issues, and many of, I guess, the opposites of these being things that our kids are dealing with. And I would imagine that, well, Pam already said she related to a lot of this. So our kids, our teenagers need 9 to 10 hours of sleep for teenagers. And many of us are thinking, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? You know, especially when they're in school. They're not going to bed until midnight if we're lucky. You know, they're getting up at 6:30 to catch buses, sometimes 5:30 because they have to do their hair and everything. So this is something that to work towards. If you have a child who's only getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep, don't try to get them 9 or 10. Don't go lecture them because, you know, we know that causes them stress. Maybe try to add a half an hour at a time kind of thing. So, and maybe I'm going to go as far as saying maybe talk to your school district about this issue because a lot of school districts are starting to open up to it. So, healthy diet rich in vegetables, 6 a day is the goal. Fresh vegetables, steamed vegetables, you know, it's winter in Indiana. Make vegetable soup, throw it in your chili, get those veggies into those kids, throw them in their smoothies. So exercise, whatever form of exercise they enjoy, encourage it. Supplements, which we're going to talk about specific supplements, and supportive, happy, nurturing environment. Now, I laugh. I have 6 kids. I'm like, are you kidding me? A happy environment? You know, Pam talked about dreaming of that. But you know what? There's a lot that we can do. Pam's daughter remembers the good times despite all that she's been through. So, you know, making sure you make that a priority. The brain needs to be functioning well to receive the benefits of even things like counseling and different therapies that you may choose to use.
So it totally makes sense. So one more quick story from Crystal Johnson to share what happened with her son just this past year. Hi, Crystal.
Hey, Barb. It's heartbreaking to listen to Miranda's story, and just a quick backstory on Christian is, you know, he in high school turned out to be a very high-achieving, athletic child. But before that, people may have heard my story about him and his sister going through a lot of upper respiratory infections and allergy-induced asthma. And, you know, we got through that with supplements and throughout inhalers and everything, and thought, you know, we were kind of in smooth sailing. And then last year, Christian started his freshman year of college and went to was going to his dream school far away from us. We're in Georgia, so he was going to Rice University in Houston, and so excited. And we moved him in, and of course his supplies included the supplements that he was taking while he, was going through high school. And he was a very disciplined child and very high achieving in sports and in his academics. And by May of last year, his grades were so low, and they were, after the first semester, they were low, but we talked about it at Christmas and chalked it up to the adjustments of going to college and being away from home and being in a new environment, all those things that, lack of sleep, college things that we've already talked about. But we had no idea the extent of it until he had failed a course, dropped the course by May, and then finally, I had been talking to him all along, but he's not the most conversive person and keeps a lot in and is all in his head all the time and very much about reading books and being in his room. So I really, the only red flag I could say was when he was asking me, he'd been looking up vitamin D, and maybe that he kind of was feeling like maybe he needed more of that. And we talked about him getting outside and running in a T-shirt and getting some more sunshine on his arms, and that was about it. And then his grades came in, and finally I must have had 3 discussions with him before he admitted to being depressed and going through days of not leaving his room, and no, he wasn't exercising anymore, and I knew he wasn't taking his supplements because he never needed them. When I called him, okay, it's time to reorder your vitalizers. Oh, no, I still have some. So then I started calling the school. His school set up with headmasters for each college, and I contacted the headmasters, and then they admit to me that, oh, yeah, he was put on their watch list. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And they referred to a counselor at the health center, and they had talked to him about it. And so all of this had been going on without our knowledge at all. Christian didn't tell us anything, and it wasn't until his grades came in at the end of the year that we were totally alarmed and jumped in the car and drove down there. And, to top it all off with, he was already signed up to do a summer internship and stay there for the summer and not come back. So then we were faced with what's going on, and do we even want to leave him there for the summer, and do we bring him home? And so he knew he did not want to leave Rice, but he just couldn't understand why he wasn't happy anymore. And we talked about it and talked seriously about depression and how to get help. And he talked to a couple counselors at the school. We stayed there for over a week and spent a lot of time with him and did leave him there for the summer. But I went back again, and then I brought him home for about 10 days, and he turned it around, but it was all about he didn't know where to go. He didn't know what to do. He could not function and could not understand why. So he basically started exercising again, changed his friend group, started hanging out with them at church. And, there may have been other things that went on, but around that friend group, we don't know. We asked him, he didn't tell us anything, but it was like he got in this downward spiral and couldn't get out.
And And so when you did intervene in May, then what shifted that you think made the biggest difference was around the diet, the supplements, the exercise, kind of the lifestyle things?
It was, I think what started was the shift in the friend group and just him understanding that the gravity of the situation of, look, this is your dream opportunity that you've worked all these years for, and if you come home now, are you going back? And I can only help you so much, and you've got to recognize what's happening. And he did recognize, and I think it was just the fact that people were intervening on his behalf that he didn't really realize that he had any place to go. And when it was the headmaster talking to him and the counselors talking to him and then his mom and dad showing up, then he's like, whoa, okay, I guess. And then he started opening up and talking and realizing how different his lifestyle had become versus what it was when he lived at home.
And so, so I'm kind of one eye on the clock, so I want to get to your solution. So you recognized the problem. He was ready to make some changes, and so there was some counseling going on that was beneficial. But you did some things then so that his brain was functioning better as well, and that's where the supplements came in and the diet. We put a list up here about some of the supplements that were really beneficial for him. Let's talk about those a little bit now individually. Anything you want to say before we go into individual discussion about these?
Just that he had the first 4 of those on the list, the protein, the vitalizer, the B complex, and the stress relief complex. That's what I sent him to school with, and the defend and resist the Nutriferon for the just in case he got sick or there was something going around. But once he got into this depressive state, that was when we actually added in 3 vitamin Ds a day, and he was at one point on 4 mood lifts a day, which is what it says 1 to 4 a day, which I like that you can choose how much to take. And that was really what kind of helped, added the extra support that he needed besides being on the basics that he should have been on.
Right. Barb, can I ask a quick question of Crystal?
Sure.
Crystal, I know you said he had all 4 of those at school. Do you believe that he was taking them?
I know that he wasn't taking them because when we went there in May to move him into a different dorm room, he still had 3 of the 4 vitalizer boxes that I sent him.
and I suspected he wasn't, so I wanted to make sure that point was made.
Right.
The nutrition wasn't there.
No.
Right.
Okay.
So here's the list. Becky, let's walk through the vitamins that are beneficial for the brain and the nervous system, and then we'll talk about the herbal formulas as well.
Absolutely. So, and many of these were on Crystal's either directly or through the vitalizer. So the B complex, we'll talk in detail about that. Very important for regulating hormones, blood sugars, cravings, all kinds of things in the body. The vitamin D helps with so many things. We hear about them every day, but especially mood and depression. There have been lots of studies linking vitamin D deficiency to depression, or just, even kind of the blues, so it doesn't have to be as severe as what we've heard about tonight. So Optiflora, that's a probiotic that we are very fond of. Omega Guard is omega-3 fish oils. Osteomatrix, this is calcium, magnesium. There are actual scientific studies that show that calcium, magnesium, and especially the magnesium component of that actually help to slow down the heart rate and calm in a very calming way, in a very beneficial way. And then the vitalized protein is just such solid nutrition that our bodies really need. So, and then we have some herbal formulas, and again, Crystal talked about adding these, and I can tell you personally, having 6 children, having a son who had a concussion, who also happens to have Asperger's syndrome. So the concussion compounded the Asperger's. I had to play around to see which of these are what he needs. So I really encourage people to know that these are some options out there. The Mood Lift Complex, which contains St. John's wort, that works for some people. The Stress Relief Complex, in my experience, works for a lot of people. The Mental Acuity, this is one that I had to add after my son's concussion that I wouldn't have naturally thought that I needed to add. We saw a big difference when we added that one in. And then MindWorks, we have all kinds of people who are using that product. So,
and
back pocket arsenal things.
Right, and the Mental Acuity is a ginkgo biloba product. So that's one that can be very beneficial for improving circulation to the brain. Hannah, everyone's mentioning B vitamins. It's always our favorite one. Walk us through these a little bit.
Well, yeah, I think that, of course, one of the things that I so impressed with Shackley is that we always have proprietary blends. We always are so far advanced in our technology. And our B vitamins not only have all the Bs, but have them in the right balance. And, of course, we know that they're so important in brain and nerve function. In fact, that's one of the reasons why that's one of the ingredients in MindWorks. But I love the fact that even knowing that folic acid is not stay stable, and therefore Shackley even found a way to use that as our coating because they found that kept the folic acid stable, which is so important. And just remember that every time we're eating those sugar and refined carbohydrates and all those snacky things, what we're doing is depleting our B vitamins. So we're going to find them in dark green vegetables and whole grains, but how many of us eat how many of those every day? So it's really essential to add the extra B complex for anything to do with the brain and nervous system.
How many of those do I have to take in order to turn into Mother Teresa? I saw that last night.
Just a bottle an hour, that's all.
You know what? I might need a bottle an hour.
Pam's the one who says one for every child. Okay. Hannah, tell us about vitamin D.
So many. Yeah, and of course the vitamin D3. If that's one of the exciting additions, I think, for everybody to have in their regime, because not only does it take care of so many other issues, helping with bones and building strong bones and keeping them healthy and helping prevent colon cancer and things like that. But also, they really do know now it definitely improves the brain function. And it's a real element in that in depression and dementia. In fact, when you all mentioned that your son started to ask about D3 because he was thinking maybe he wasn't getting enough sunlight and how he was feeling. So it's becoming more commonly known. But certainly an important addition to our regime, I think, whatever we're taking.
Excellent. Crystal, Mood Lift was one of the ones important for Christian.
Yes, Mood Lift, definitely. And when I saw this slide, I thought, the Germany's answer to Prozac, made me remember that 10 years ago we had German neighbors who were here on a work visa, and she always ordered her herbal supplements from Germany and had them shipped to her because she told me, the ones here were just junk, that the ones they had in Germany were standardized extracts, and everyone took them as medicine, and doctors prescribed them and knew what they were, and she couldn't find anything. This was before I was doing Shackley or even knew what Shackley was, actually, and so I just remember that, and this Mood Lift is exactly that. I have heard other people say, oh yeah, I've taken St. John's wort before and it didn't really help me. But if you ask, okay, where did you get it? And did you pick it up at Walmart?
Very, very good point.
That's right. Huge difference. So
very good point.
Very huge for Christian. And I like the fact also that you can take, it says on the bottle, 1 to 4 capsules a day. So you can decide, what is the right amount for you.
Excellent. Very good. And then Pam.
And can I ask, Crystal, how quickly, in your experience, did that work? Did he notice a difference with Mood Lift? Because we talked about so many of the medications taking 4 to 6 weeks to kick in.
Yes, and actually it says on in the Shackley catalog, I believe in the product guide, that it can take 4 to 6 weeks. It worked much quicker than that for Christian. I would say in a week.
Okay, awesome.
Nice, great.
Yeah.
Pam.
Okay, we have Stress Relief Complex. It is my new favorite thing right behind the complex. And not only for the kids, but for the parents, too. If you think you're immune from stress, you are incorrect. So, I like to follow the advice of the airlines. When we have a reduction in cabin pressure in your home, you need to put on your mask first and then tend to the masks of your children. Yes. And I think it's really important for parents to, when the cabin pressure in your home is reduced for some reason suddenly, that means the wind is out of your sails, you need to gear up. And this product really, for me, is a daily necessity. I take 2 a day. My husband takes 1 a day, and a whole handful of B-complex he takes. I do a small handful. So, but nervous systems and stress, and really, I like it because it blunts cortisol production in the body safely. And when you're under stress, your body produces cortisol. That creates you to carry weight around your middle, particularly. A lot of we moms have a situation right there. That's called my situation, my little muffin top in the middle. But we want to try to keep that cortisol from being produced. And when we're under stress, it just happens that way. So this is very helpful. There's 2 amino acids in the product are listed there, and 2 herbs, ashwagandha and beta-cytosterol. So very helpful, very natural, aren't going to interact with other things. And I've had feedback from my Shaklee customers that tell me that they've been under stress after school and, barking at their kids and frustrated about can't get dinner on the table, and stopped and took a stress relief complex, and literally 20 minutes later are sitting down at the table having a nice dinner conversation with their children about their day. This product works for anything from public speaking to interviews or nervous situations, appointments, stressful things with your kids. Really just great product. I can't say enough about it.
Excellent.
That's great.
Now you may be curious why we have probiotics on a list of products for dealing with stress. But the reason is that we have learned neurotransmitters that we were discussing earlier is you think about those as being in the brain, but it turns out that 60% of them are in the brain, but 40% of them are in the gut. And I was thinking about that statistic on that first slide tonight about how the incidence of kids with depression and anxiety has increased so dramatically, even in the last 14 years. And I thought, well, what has changed in the last 14 years? Well, certainly all the stressors that Pam walked us through, and just the whole internet, and everybody with a cell phone, and everybody, texting and can say any old thing, and it becomes, throughout the whole school within one press of a button. But diets, I think, have continued to deteriorate. And, we've got to remember there is a big connection between what we eat and who we are and how we function and how our brains function and how healthy we are. And probiotics is a place to start. Even 70 to 80% of the immune system is in the gut. So it's really quite critical. And Shaklee has quite a unique product. Hannah, can you just real quick
Sure.
talk about that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that what's exciting is to know that you can rely on a company that really prepares products in a proprietary fashion that allows such high delivery, like we can guarantee those 500 million healthy live bacteria still being alive when they get into the large intestine. And really heard from a doctor who's the head of infectious disease in the Pittsburgh area. He said that he checked so many of the probiotics and there wasn't anything alive in them at all.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's really nice to know we have that triple encapsulation. It can go right by the stomach acid, water, everything, and we're going to have it protected. So
very good.
It's
Becky.
going to make a good difference.
Mm-hmm. Becky?
Yes. Yep, I'm here.
Omega Guard?
Omega Guard. I don't have the slide.
Oh.
There we go. It wasn't clicking.
Oh, okay.
Barb and I were working on this earlier, and I think it was my 5-year-old just started cracking up when she saw that picture. She's like, "What happened to his head?" So we got a kick out of that. But Omega Guard, this is such an important product. I really, especially with anxiety, or really everybody from every age needs to be on Omega Guard. But this is an omega-3 fatty acid. This is essential for brain development. In fact, omegas are quickly becoming the most recommended supplement by OBGYNs next to a multivitamin. And the reason is because it helps babies' brain development so much, even inside of mom. So if it gets past that barrier, we know that this is something strong. So helps prevent memory loss and depression, benefits with ADD and ADHD. And since I do a lot with kids on the autism spectrum, I'm going to tell you this is one of my top 4 products. You know, I kind of go in order, and actually this is right there is number 2 or 3, depending on the age they are. So anyway, I won't go into detail about that. But we do. And I want to say that when we're talking about kids, we often want to go for another product that Shaklee has called Mighty Smarts. Fantastic product for getting DHA in, but it does not have the EPA and some of the other principles that our kids really need. So I really recommend strongly going for the Omega Guard and getting it in them somehow. So reduces inflammation. My kids chew it. My kids chew it.
I know. If you start them early enough, sometimes you can.
Our grandchildren. Yeah, I was just going to say, our grandchildren always called it their pop vitamins because they'd actually chew it up, and they loved the fact that it would, like, pop open.
Okay.
Right, exactly. I do want to mention just really quickly the Shaklee difference, because this is a really big deal with omegas. A lot of people will say, well, can I go get the lemon-flavored one or the lime-flavored one or the gummies or the this or the that? There is a huge amount of mercury contamination in fish oil. The top 10 manufacturers have been under litigation for mercury contamination, and they put right on the bottle that it's not in there. So you really need to do your research when picking a brand.
Very good. Thank you, Becky. And so there's a brand new product that just came out from Shaklee called MindWorks. And so we haven't used it a lot with the teenagers and college students, but we wanted you to know about them because the research is so amazing. There are 3 key ingredients, one that helps to reduce shrinkage of the brain, and obviously if the brain shrinks, it doesn't work as well. Guarana is another one that helps improve the connectivity between neurons in the brain, which improves memory, focus, concentration. Lots of college students are reporting great improvement with that. And then there's another ingredient that helps with the circulation so that you're bringing more oxygen and nutrients up to the brain. So there's some wonderful research that shows how effective it is, 3 times better memory and focus than when they have taken this just in a few hours. But I want to get to one more issue that is we want to keep in mind, and that is that teenagers are going through puberty. And so that means that hormones are going nuts, and you've got estrogen receptors in the brain, and hormones affect every bit of the body. And so, Becky, just give us some quick ideas of what kinds of things we can do with supplements to help balance that.
Right. Barb, I want to mention, my slide is still on Omega Guard, and I don't know if other people are seeing that too.
Yeah, but it's been very slow changing for some reason.
Yeah, it probably has to do with your internet connection, because I've clicked them off of mine, instantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Okay. Sure. Okay.
Okay. So
did you get caught up? Mm-hmm.
I'm still on MindWorks, so unfortunately I'm not seeing that slide.
Okay. Well,
do you want to just go ahead?
Yes, basically just understand that when it comes to the diet, I can't think of really any condition that isn't improved by reducing or eliminating sugar and refined carbs and processed foods, because all that stuff feeds candida, among other things, depletes all kinds of nutrients, and emphasizing fresh fruits and vegetables. It's just, that's what nature intended us to eat. It's the most natural foods that grows right out of the earth. But there are supplements.
I do have the slide
now. Good. Okay. Go ahead.
Take over. So that that was funny. So along the side, there are 10 signs of hormone imbalances, and I encourage everyone to just read those as I'm talking. So like she said, the vegetables, reduce, eliminate sugar, refined carbs and such, which is a little bit hard with our kids as they're going through puberty because they are craving those things. But the supplements that we would really recommend to look at adding are the Vitalized Protein Shake. Shaklee has a couple of different options for the proteins. The energizing protein can be very helpful also. Vitalea, Optiflora, and B-Complex are all in the Vitalizer. And then GLA specifically works, especially in our girls and in our moms, to help balance out hormones during certain times in the cycle. GLA is actually very beneficial for boys and men also, but since we're specifically talking about the hormone imbalance, that GLA, I really recommend, honestly, that all of our girls from the time that they start their cycles be on that product. It's a daily product in my home. So
it is excellent, right? So a great starting place, Becky. Can you see that? Is the healthy?
I don't have it yet, but I know what it is. So
okay, all right.
Yes, I know. Barbara and I talked about this earlier. So all of this, some of you are thinking that sounds really great, but my teenager is not going to jump in and take all of these products. And keep in mind that, as Crystal said and as Pam said, their families were already on quite a few of these products. But we want to start somewhere that's easy and manageable. And just not bombard our kids with too much if they're just getting started. And so we recommend getting started with the Healthy Foundations. This is the Vitalizer Strip. To be really honest, the Vitalizer Strip might seem like a lot right off the bat for your 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old. You get the idea. But if you can get that in them and a smoothie a day, whether it be the 180 smoothie that's shown here, the Vitalized Protein, so probably one of those since they have the proper balances. That is just a really great starting place. And I just encourage you that if you have a teenager that even that is a struggle to get that in, I encourage you to talk to the person who invited you so that they can help you work with a program because the teenage years are not those years to try to literally force things down our kids' throat. We want to start somewhere, and you might have to start as basic as a smoothie and a stress relief complex. Mm-hmm. But if you can get the foundations in them, highly encourage that.
All the better, right? So we just want to close with a word about stress because, kids learn what we model. And years ago, when stress management seminars were very popular back in the 80s, I remember hearing experts say, stress is 100% self-induced. And I did not like hearing that. That it's not the events of life in and of themselves that cause stress. It's our reaction to the events of life. And I know that was something I learned at the feet of two parents who really reacted a lot with stress. And so I found a couple of quotes that might be helpful for us to begin to incorporate ourselves into the way we react and we act during ourselves and what we're modeling for our kids and to help teach them. And one of my favorite one is, everything is okay in the end. If it's not okay, then it's not the end. That's a wonderful thing to be able to teach kids. And the other one is, it comes from World War II in England, in London, when London was being bombed every night. Can you imagine every night having bombs flying over the city? They had blackouts so they wouldn't see any lights, and every night the people had to go down into the subways to sleep and then come out in the morning and go to work. And Winston Churchill started this motto, and they all just lived by it, and it got them through it, and it was keep calm and carry on. And it's a wonderful thing to remind ourselves that this too shall pass. We'll get through it. Let's just hold hands and support one another as we do it. And there's another very famous, most wonderful reading that I was exposed to when my kids were very little, and I bought this in a poster, and I have it right in front of me all the time, and I make sure I put it right in front of my children. And it was called Children Learn What They Live. And it said, if a child lives with criticism, then they learn to condemn. If a child lives with hostility, they learn to fight. If a child lives with ridicule, they learn to be shy. That's the real danger of the bullying, right? If a child lives with shame, they learn to feel guilty. But if a child lives with tolerance, then they learn to be patient. And if a child lives with encouragement, they learn confidence. If a child lives with praise, they learn to appreciate. If they live with fairness, they learn justice. If they live with security, they learn to have faith. And if they live with approval, they learn to like themselves. And so if a child lives with acceptance and friendship, they learn to find love in the world. It's just a beautiful quotation. And so just to summarize, exercise, especially outdoors, especially in the sunlight, very important. Adding the vegetables, because when you put the fresh vegetables in, those carbs and refined stuff goes out. Getting enough sleep. And then I wanted to put in a plug for the importance of animals. Kids need dogs, and dogs need kids. Pets can ease loneliness, reduce stress, promote social interaction, encourage exercise and playfulness, but most important, they provide unconditional love and affection, and they are really important. And I found these pictures of kids with their dogs, and the one at the top especially, it brought tears to my eyes, knowing that that kid looks to me like he really needs the love of those dogs. It's really great. But cats can be a pal too. And so Becky, you just want to mention your thoughts about kitties?
Well, Barb told me today I couldn't find any pictures of anybody snuggling kittens, and I said we have a kitten, and we grabbed my girls and we immediately started clicking pictures. And so I'm not, anyway, I won't go there. I love dogs, but I'm not a dog person, and so I allowed my kids to get a kitten, and it was such a blessing to our family. So we have a guinea pig too, and guinea pigs are very snuggly too. I just want to.
And if you don't have a lot of experience with pets, cats are easy to start with. But this is our grandson Jack, and it was a couple of years ago, and he was one of these kids that was running off to music tryouts right after school, after putting in a full day of school and getting up at 6 o'clock this morning. But this cat, I gave him a few years back, and he waits every day for Jack to come home. Every day, and he greets him at the door, and he sleeps on his bed every night. And that cat is, and we just got one for Sophie over here. He's still pretty little, but it's important. And so, and better yet, adopt a cat and a dog. Love that picture. And you know what? We got to remember to bring laughter into the house every day, because even when things get tough, we got to find stuff that we can laugh at. Even when we can, you either cry or you can laugh, and sometimes laughing will be a whole lot better. So here's a little summary of some of the supplements that we've talked about. Here's a great starting place that Becky mentioned, the foundations that maybe add the B complex, the stress relief. And I wanted just to quickly put up Becky's contact information if you'd like to contact her for consultations. She's at beckycash.com, or you can send her a Facebook private message, and she'll get back to you, and you can set up an appointment. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, all of you wonderful speakers tonight.
Thank you.
Joe, any questions that we need to field?
Yes, some very great comments complimenting all of you for the great job you did. And a question on what age level could a child take a stress relief?
Can I field this one? This is Becky.
Please.
Yes. So stress relief complex has an ingredient in it called ashwagandha root. Ashwagandha root is an adaptogen, so adapt, and it's very safe. And the amounts that are in Shaklee stress relief complex are very safe amounts to take also. So in our home, we have used it as young as our children could swallow. Especially, I see enormous benefit for kids on the autism spectrum. So I want to think maybe 6 might be the youngest that we've seen, but there are, this is my textbook answer, not Shaklee corporate answer, because, they don't test products on children. But in the textbooks that I use in my desk references, there is no minimum age for ashwagandha root. And the other ingredients are amino acids, which are protein chains. So I would say that if you can get it in your kid, I feel comfortable saying that it's okay to use.
Good to know.
Very good, yeah. And understand that the company is also restricted by Food and Drug Administration regulations, and so that's why they can't say anything. And that's why people will say, well, what about little kids? And it says, at 4 years and up on the children's chewable. It just means that's just what the labeling has to say from FDA. It doesn't mean you can't give it to your kids when they're a year old. As soon as they have teeth, they can chew it. But same thing.
Sure.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Next week, the last week of last Monday of every month, we do an overview of Shaklee. We tell you a little bit about the history and the philosophy. We will highlight the 4 different product lines. We'll have some folks going to be sharing their story, and we'll also talk a bit about the benefits of home businesses, and you'll hear some stories around that too. So please join us next week for Inside the World of Shaklee. And thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Becky. We had a real nice panel discussion tonight.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Good night. Bye-bye.